Welcome, friends and spiritual rebels. Today, I want to speak a little bit on the topic of discernment when it comes to deciding the relevance to you of other people's spiritual experiences. And to start with, I want to point out that we are spirits in physical bodies. Physical body doesn't define us. If you want to use an analogy that might make sense to a lot of you, it's like the difference between your computer and your software. The software is the spirit, the computer would be the body. This is what the spirit runs on. And when this is damaged, the spirit, and the computer's damaged, the software, can't run correctly. So you have to keep that in mind when dealing with people's experiences, because there are those who deliberately damage the body, the mind, the emotions of others, in particular children and young people, in order to pull them into some very despicable spiritual practices, in order to enslave them or involve them into some very horrific and organized spiritual work. Spiritual does not mean good. Spiritual means of the spirit. And of the spirit could be good or it could be very, very negative. It depends on how you use it. You need to keep that in mind. It's because a person has abilities that transcend what is mundane doesn't mean they're a good person. We're accustomed to thinking of a spiritual person by default as being good, and that isn't necessarily the case. And we need to remember that. I was listening to, again, a story of a gentleman sharing his experiences, and he had been involved in that world. He had been pulled into it when he was very young. And as a result, he obsessively tried to learn as much as he could about spiritual abilities, most likely instinctively to find a way out. Unfortunately for him, the what was done to him conditioned him to be focused in a certain direction. It opened him up too early. It exposed him to energies that were detrimental. And it positioned him in such a way that his experiences would lead into practices that were harmful for his sovereignty. One of the ways you can tell the difference between a beneficial spiritual practice and one that is negative is, does it support your sovereignty? Does it make you more in your sovereignty? Does it give you independence? Does it give you freedom? Does it give you the ability to tap into energy that's freely given, without condition, without contract? Because the positive spiritual energies, it's a flow, it's a part of you, and it's a free gift. It's a gift the universe gives, and a gift you give to the universe. On the negative side of the spiritual practices, everything is contractual. Nothing comes without a price. Everything is, it's not a gift, it's an exchange. You give this, I'll give that. You contract for this, I'll contract for that. It's always conditional. One of the things that this gentleman mentioned about his when he tried to learn his as much as he could about his spiritual self, and he kept running up against what was programmed into him by others. One of the things he mentioned is you can work all of your life to develop your spiritual gifts, and you'll the results you'll receive will be very minimal. And in even those results, it won't come from you. It will come from the demonic thing that has. Okay. That may be true for this person, but that isn't true for people who haven't had the conditioning and the experience, and dare I say, damage to their spiritual abilities and senses and capacity this person has had. We have to be careful about assuming that what is true for one will be true for all. Now, his comment was that the only way to overcome the negative spiritual experiences, the negative spiritual forces in the world, is by his particular patron God, his particular understanding of divine force, in this case, Christianity and Jesus. This is likely very true for him because he comes into a society where Jesus is the Savior. Literally, that is the role of that divine force, of that divine ray, is to save us. So those who are in need of saving can reach out to that particular side of the divine force and receive help. And because what was done to him was done by a group of people who have very strong backing within the world, both literally, physically, and spiritually through the power that they receive. It is important for the victims of that particular experience to be able to receive a collective measure of help and to get a group, a collective help for yourself. You need to tap into a community, and the spiritual community that is designed to help and to save within Western society is strongly that of Christianity. The thing about religion is it allows people to pool their spiritual resources, to work together. If you have a common belief system, common system of value, a story that underlines that system that you can put your belief into, you can join the energies of a group together, way more powerful than simply one person. You can join the energies of a group together for purposes that are wonderful and good, as well as purposes that are damaging and harmful. The knife cuts both ways. You have to use discernment. You have to use your own intuition, your heart, your belief, your understanding, and your centeredness and source to gain that understanding in order to determine whether the means that you put your spiritual gifts to is good or harmful. By the fruits you shall know them. In other words, by the reactions that you get, by what you produce from your spirit, it will be easier for you to determine with what you are doing is for good or for ill. And again, be careful about receiving spiritual advice from someone who has been conditioned to a very particular path. What's very true of the person walking that path with that experience may not be true for you. We are diverse, we are strong, we are sovereign, and we are free. Welcome to the woods.